Welcome to the Second Bite Podcast, where we talk with top entrepreneurs and CEOs about creating valuable companies through creative transactions. Now, let's get started with the show.
Okay, so part two of Power Digital Marketing's episode with Grayson Lafrenz. Part one was terrific. In part two, we're going to talk a lot more about, Grayson's going to talk a lot more about how to work with your private equity team. Remember that Grayson grew his business in less than 3 years from 5 million of EBITDA to 30 million of EBITDA. They did that by acquiring 4 businesses. They did it by a lot of things. He'll give you some of the insight into how they got there. He also gives really good advice on when to bring your team into the tent, if you will, when to tell them about an acquisition when you're going to be acquired or when you're thinking about bringing on private equity as a group. Also talks about what they have on their agenda as far as M&A, that they're planning to ramp up their M&A, and he talks about the specific areas that they're looking for. So I think you're going to love this episode. It's the second half of what was a first great piece. So if you didn't see that, go get that first. Also, I want to thank our friends at TeamShares. TeamShares is a great private equity group out of New York. They are focused on acquiring businesses and then transitioning equity ownership to employees. So over a 7 to 10 year period, employees will own a majority of the equity in the company. It's really a tremendous concept. You can learn more by going to teamshares.com. If you search on our website here, you'll find the interview I had with TeamShares. You can learn more about them. Also, you can reach out to me by email or through LinkedIn or from the show notes here, and I'd be happy to tell you more about TeamShares. They're a terrific group.
Style of an entrepreneur and a private equity person can be very different, and you've got to come to a middle ground. Like, I'm not, I'll throw ideas out there that I'm not like saying that we're going to do it, but I'm excited about, and I'm not going to like come calculated to every single meeting. And I had to kind of train and explain to John that, hey, don't take everything I say fully literally. I'm going to launch stuff up there. We'll talk about it. It doesn't mean we're doing it, because usually the private equity folks are super analytical, which is very valuable skill set to have and complement. But I think, John and I both met in the middle on that. And we got to the point where I really knew how he was going to think about things or what he was going to want to do and vice versa. And it made for a lot of fun and a really easy, drama-free partnership.
Great. I'm going to ask this question for my friends, Chris and Mark. How would you advise an entrepreneur who has gotten interest from one private equity group and they've made him an offer? Do you think they should try to negotiate a deal like that, or do you think it would make sense for them to talk to multiple?
I would want to get multiple. I mean, look, as a buyer, I love finding off-market deals. I'm going to get a better deal, and it's going to be less risk for me because, I'm going to do my diligence and I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. And as long as their company checks out, we're going to do a deal. Whereas if it's a process, that's a lot harder to do. That's why brands do RFPs, right? And I don't think any of us digital marketing folks like RFPs. We're like, man, this sucks. And well, they do it because it keeps you very honest and it drives market conditions that create competition. So I think you're always going to be better off, having a process and having multiple offers, but it's a lot of work. It's exhausting. It's a massive distraction from your business. It will probably be some of the most stressful 6 months or whatever you've ever had. And so I think for people, it's about weighing, are they prepared to go through that? Can their business survive and thrive? Because you've got to do that if you run a process. You're publishing financials and you better hit those numbers. Yeah. Can your business survive and thrive while you're spending 80% of your time on a transaction process? So you got to ask yourself those questions. And if you can, then you run the process and you're going to get more options. You're going to get better terms. You're going to get better value. And if you can't, and you've got somebody you really like and that really feels right in your heart and you're happy with the deal, then it might make sense to do the deal. But I think it's dangerous to not have competition really in anything that you do. It'd be like getting married to the first, person that you go on a date with, right? I don't think that typically works out that well. So I think it's just kind of common sense in terms of dating around and having multiple horses to compare to to start to see what you like and what you don't, and different approaches. And if you're comparing only one, then you've got a pretty small perspective.
Yeah. So you did your transaction with Periscope. You said you're about 5 million of EBITDA. And then you grew it to your recent exit, which is Q1 of 2022, right? And you were where? Can you give me an idea of where you were EBITDA wise?
No, we were right around 30.
Around 30 million of EBITDA.
Yeah.
So at that point, how do you come to the decision that we want to sell if you're Periscope, or we need a bigger partner if you're Power Digital? How did you decide now's the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I love about Periscope is we never had a conversation. This was the time. If anything, myself and our team was always pushing tempo more than Periscope. And we're pretty aggressive, and we're pretty ambitious, and we set big goals. And so I think some of the goals we set, I can promise you that, Periscope, like on the phone call, they're like, yeah, great. Yeah. And then behind the scenes, they're like, these guys are nuts. And they're like, if they can get to half of that, we'll be thrilled. Right. So we went at it. And then, after about a year and a half, when we started to see that, the zone that we wanted to be in, and the exercise that we did with Periscope, and I just did it with Court Square, and I highly recommend it, is I created a scorecard, and it showed our current state and a bunch of different metrics, a bunch of different aspects. And then we went and created the end state. And so what is the, drop zone, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, to where we think we've created tremendous value and built a company that's going to be the crown jewel of the dance. And once we get into that zone, then we've got optionality. And, if we want to run a process at that point, we're there. Or if we think we want to continue to push and add more value and do this, we can do that. So we did that. And we eclipsed those numbers about a year and a half or 2 years in. And so then we very intentionally knew we were going to run, a process. The reality is that for a private equity firm to transact on a platform in less than 3 years, it is something absolutely insane to happen, because they get capital gains treatment after 3 years. So obviously it would be kind of foolish for them to transact within that time frame. And I wouldn't, if I was treated that way, I wouldn't want to either, because it's not tax efficient. So we were there and in that striking distance, but we were having a lot of fun, and we have a ton of meat on the bone right now. We're just getting started. And
they also got a 10x plus return on their capital. So, right, all that's pretty good.
It was a win-win-win for everybody. And but we wouldn't have done a deal. The process we just ran, if we didn't find Court Square and we didn't really love them and what they stood for and feel that they would be the perfect partner, and we didn't get the types of deal that we wanted on the current and also the future opportunity, we would have kept doing what we were doing. There was no expiring shot clock. It was right. Which puts you in a good position, right? That's the position you want to be in.
How are you different? 2020, I guess 2022, kind of when you went through this process versus the Periscope process. What was the kind of the biggest difference in terms of what you were looking for and what was important to the business at that time?
Yeah, I think when we ran the process in 2018, we were just, I didn't even know that companies were sellable, right? You're trusting people, and I didn't know what types of interest there would be. I think we were just trying to get offers and interest and have some options back then. Right. And I think was very interested in private equity because was not even close to wanting to be done on the mission, and knew that our best way to do that, to be able to take some chips off the table, reset the cap table to an extent, get team members vested, and then do M&A and things we wanted to do, we knew our best path was through private equity. So we were just hoping to get some private equity deals. And, we did, and we were lucky. And then, it felt right with Periscope, and the offers were all fairly similar, and what it was going to do for us in terms of what we can offer our team and the upside that we can create was the best. And so that's how that was. This time around, we knew that we had the best numbers in this space. We knew our financials were elite in almost every single area, and I don't know if it's the best in every area, but we knew that our financials alone would turn heads and would attract people. And on top of that, we knew that our work and our clients and our culture and our technology would really differentiate us. And I don't think that there's an agency that has more tech than we do and has a tech vision like ours. And so we really were confident that we would have a ton of interest, and we wanted to go wide and be very open-minded to see kind of the options and, the pitch or the angle that people were coming in with. In the back of our heads, we thought we would do a private equity deal, and we wanted to. But we wanted to be open-minded as well and meet some incredible other companies that are competitors in ways to us and other stuff. And you get to meet a lot of really amazing people through that process. And I exposed about 20 of our team members to the process. So
wow. That's unusual.
That was a big difference as well. The first time it was myself, and then really Rob Rodriguez, who was my co-founder and our CFO. And that also changes your terms, right? When they think you have that type of key person risk, it's going to change the terms. And this time I put 20 people in front of all these different players and let them shine, and also let them get that experience. And ultimately, when we got down to the 5 finalists, I went and polled all 20 people involved, and every single one of them picked Court Square.
Jeez.
And just clear that that's what we wanted to do, and that we still had so much potential, and that we were really just getting started, and we wanted a partner that we can realize that potential with and have that upside for the future.
So I'm going back to Periscope for a minute. So you had your act together. You were pretty tight, right? When you went into that process, you run a tight ship, a lot of KPIs, all like that. Post-transaction, what was the biggest adjustment that you had to make as a portfolio company of Periscope? And what was the biggest surprise post-close? Again, back to Periscope.
Yeah. The reality is they adjust to us more so than anything, right? I mean, that's the beauty of a great private equity firm, is they're doing a deal with you because they think that your company is a winner, and they think it's very special, especially when you're the platform. And they think it's so special that they'll pay you more than others, and they want to acquire and both merge those companies in because they think you'll make them better. So the last thing that they want to do is mess your flow up and mess what you have up. And so what I've seen with the 2 firms I've worked with is they're actually very cautious on getting in your business and pushing ideas, or you should talk to this, or being things that you would think are critical. And I've joked with them both about that, where it's like, look, we're not going to get our feelings hurt. You tell us what you think is critical, but we're also going to tell you when we think you're wrong, right? I mean, we're sitting at the table together. I'm not above you. You're not above me. It's the best idea wins. And John Finley would tell you that they've probably never had a portfolio company or CEO that shares as much stuff with them. I mean, I added them to our Slack channel so they can see stuff. Like, we were an open book. The biggest thing that changed that we had to professionalize was accounting and finance. And they helped us a ton with that. But I mean, we had a 2-person accounting and finance team, and it's like, you're pretty basic. And when you're scaling early on, you don't want to spend your money there because it doesn't make you money.
And why was that critical to you, Grayson? Why was that critical? Is it because you just could see it better, or did it help you make important decisions on how to run the business?
Yeah. So Rob and I, Rob Rodriguez, co-founder, we built a great financial model early on, and it got more advanced. And there's probably been literally 50,000 iterations on this over the last 9 years. But what it did is it showed us what would happen in the future. So to me, accounting is like, it's okay. You got to have it. You got to make sure what you think happened, but it prevents downside and it prevents problems. It doesn't give you the ability to make decisions and realize opportunities. Finance does. And so we had this model where we can see the future, and we knew if we did this would happen. And we knew that we had this lever we can pull if we missed on this target, and we had this lever we can pull here. And so we lived and breathed in that model. We still do now. We meet twice a week, our leadership team, and we go through the model as a group. And what levers do we have, and how are we pacing, and what do we want to increase here? And we've really simplified our revenue engine. So we always had that, but it wasn't scalable, and it was very tedious. And so Periscope helped us make that more scalable. I mean, we had all types of relationships and things that we needed as we joined Periscope from an accounting and finance that we didn't have before. They have reporting requirements, right, for their LPs and for the debt facility, and for Avanti Capital, who is another great partner, who is our mezz debt partner. And so you just have to professionalize those things. And so that was the biggest change. And really didn't impact our team. I always tell people this. When we did the deal with Periscope, if I didn't tell our team, which I would never do, we're transparent on everything. We share financials with the team. If I didn't tell them, I don't think that they would even know. Other than really cool stuff started to happen and we were more aggressive on some stuff and we did M&A. But in terms of the day-to-day and who they interacted with, they wouldn't even know. And it's the same thing with Court Square right now. If I didn't tell our team, they would not know that deal is done.
And what are you looking for Court Square? M&A is going to be one part of it, so I'd like to get your comment on that. Before M&A and what specifically you're looking for, because listeners might be interested in that. What else do you think they can add to the team, or is it really just all about accelerating growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're incredibly smart and experienced. I mean, they've built more industry leaders than we have. That's for sure. And they've done it across a lot of categories, and they're incredibly well respected. And they can bring relationships, strategy, resources. They can bring all those things to the table. And the way that they think in their industry is very different than the way that, we think as operators and entrepreneurs and things. And that's a great thing. And so they're just very different vantage points that when they come together, they give you the full picture. So that, I mean, I can go on and on, but it's connections, it's relationships, it's deal flow, it's other relationships, it's professionalizing things that you need to professionalize around, how your capitalization schedules, how you look at data, IT, downside protection, insurance. So it's all that stuff. They also have really cool programs where they connect different experts from all their portfolio companies, and you get kind of a forum roundtable experience where I get to interact with all the other CEOs, some super talented people, and HR gets to interact with all the other HR, and our technology team and all the CTOs get to interact, and the sales leaders. So you can go on and on. But I mean, the biggest thing we're looking for is for them to be the great group that we know that they are, and to be straight up with us, and to give us critical feedback when they see it, and to have our back, and to be in it together for the long haul, because it's not easy. And when you're trying to build something really big and special, there's a lot of bumps along the road, and you got to weather those bumps. And so we want a partner that's not knee jerk, and that's been there and is calm, cool, collected, and that, knows that those are part of the journey. And that's what Periscope did for us. And that's what I know Court Square is going to do. And that's what our team's all about. And that's, how you have success over time, in my opinion.
And I know you're always, forward looking. As you're forward looking now and thinking about areas that are going to help your business from an acquisition standpoint, from an M&A perspective, what areas are you looking to fill that's kind of at the top of your priority list now?
Yeah, so we've got a thesis that we used in phase 2 that we want to use on a bigger scale, and we want to do big deals, and we want to be aggressive. But it's really simple. Is we look for companies from an M&A perspective that are great core values matched to us, where we're really excited to work with their team and join forces and have a lot of fun together. They have great talent that's going to fill holes that we have and make our team better and deeper. They do 1 to 2 services that we do, so that we're both speaking the same language. It reduces the integration risk, and we can take the best of theirs and the best of ours and combine them for an even better product. And then, our thesis is around revenue synergies, and your product got better, your team got better, your culture got better. You have more customers. They've got great customers that fit our ICP. And then we can use our technology to show these customers other opportunities and how they can connect different digital channels and drive, new services into those brands. And we've got about 9 years of data now that show the more services that we do for a client, the better the results the client gets, the stickier we are, and the more profitable. And so we can work that equation. And when you think about integrating a company, there's 2 really important things in our industry. The first is the employees have to win. So the team members that are coming over, they didn't decide to come. You've got to re-recruit them. You've got to earn their trust, and you've got to show them that they have more career paths, more ability to learn and get exposure, and the ability to make more money. And we're able to do that very easily. And then the clients need to win. And you need to show the clients that they're going to get more value and better service for their dollar than they did before. And with our technology platform and the diversity of different expertise that we have, we're able to do that. So it's really about that. Some areas that are really interesting to us, we want to be very aggressive on TikTok. We'd be willing to do smaller deals there because I don't think there's a lot of scale that anyone really has there yet.
I agree.
Conversion rate optimization. We want to build the best CRO offering in the world. And so we're very interested there. Amazon, connected TV. Those are definitely some interesting areas, but really we believe in all of our core products and services. And if we found a fantastic company that, fits all the criteria I talked about and that we were really excited to join forces with, then we would be aggressive and we would pursue.
Got it. Two last questions and I'll finish this up. For somebody that's thinking about going into kind of a process or looking to partner with private equity, if you had to limit it just to two pieces of advice, what would those two be?
I think one's common sense, which is just make sure that when you're interacting with people through the process, that you just think about their motives and think about yours, and have those in mind. And the more that you can align your two interests so that you win together, the better. And I think about that when you're picking a banker and doing that deal. I think about that when you're getting legal counsel. I think about that when you're structuring a deal. So probably that. And then two, I think to me, probably transparency and being transparent with your leadership team and your team, because you need help. And, the process itself will take a ton of time. And, the more transparent you are with the team, the more you make them a part of that process. You have that type of culture. They're going to be excited. They're going to cover for you when you need it. You're going to be able to celebrate what you do together, and you make it a win for everybody. So really think about that.
A lot of guys feel like they can't, like if employees knew we were thinking of selling or bringing in private equity, they would get spooked and go do something else. True or not true?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do think that.
In reality, has that been part of your experience or no? Because you've done exactly the opposite with great results.
I think a lot of corporate and company cultures are very flawed though. And so if you're like, I'm going to keep a secret from my team because I think they won't like it, there's something there. And you might want to think about why you can't trust any of your team, or why they wouldn't trust you, or why is what you're doing bad for them. So I think, I don't know that, I was pretty obvious with the foreshadowing that we were running a process with our company this last year. I didn't come out and say it on a company-wide meeting, but I did say that we're going to be bringing on a new financial sponsor that's going to help us with phase 3 at some point. But we had probably 50 or probably actually more like 100 people that knew. And I think, there's a lot of trust there, partly because of honesty. But the reality is what we were doing was going to be great for everybody. Nothing was going to change. I was going to, continue to do my job, and our president was going to do his, and our CFO his, and, everybody's, staying and excited for the next phase. So there's really no reason to not be transparent around it. But I think at some point you're going to come out and have to share what you've been doing. And I would rather, be as transparent as I can about that, throughout, and, have my team excited and make sure that they're part of that success and that excitement.
Also makes the process a ton easier. You're right.
Yeah.
So last question I'll end with, which I always do. So you've been, by just about every measure, a very successful person, right? Very successful in business. I know successful with your family life and in the industry and your community and the rest. Is there anything in particular that you would point to, like a book or a mentor or an experience that you had that you would attribute that success to more than anything else?
No, I think good family growing up that taught me good values: work hard, don't be a victim, get better, don't be scared. My dad used to make us do great, he would volunteer us to speak at church, to do, he'd put us on the spot. And I think that probably helped make me not be afraid to get rejected and to put myself out there. But I think really just the luckiest thing that ever happened to me is when we were starting Power Digital. We had a couple great people, and then some of our early employees were just the wrong people, talented, but victims and complainers. And I remember clearly one of our first employees, Mike O'Para, he was a freaking intern. And, we were starting to get good traction. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And he goes, "Hey, can we go to lunch? I want to talk to you about my internship and this." I'm like, "Oh, sure. I'll take the intern to lunch." We go to lunch, and he's like, "We got to fire these people. Everything's wrong. This is broken." I was like, holy smokes. But he was actually very right. And, over the course of the months after that, those people worked themselves out. I think it was 3 or 4 people, but we were a 12-person company. And, we brought in great people that more than anything were winners and wanted to get better and were coachable and had a growth mindset. And everything changed. And they attracted other people that shared that mindset. And, I've learned a ton. I've been pushed. I've been picked up from the ground, by a large group of our team that's been together for a very long time. And it's been one of the most special things. And a lot of them I consider great friends in addition to being business partners and teammates. So I think it's just really getting the right people in your company. And I think, you got to pay for it at some point too. And it's worth it if you get the right people. So that's probably the biggest lesson I learned over time. And the biggest key to the success that we've been able to have is just a team that is a bunch of winners and great people.
That's fantastic. It's a great way to end our time together. You're super generous as you have been in the past, Grayson. So thanks for sharing your experience with us. Thanks to the good people at Team Shares. Continued success to Power Digital in phase 3 of what you guys are executing on. It'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Great chatting with you as always. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the Second Bite podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.